Hi, this is Dr. Gaby Cora and welcome to my show, Dr. Gaby's Take, Make Life Interesting.
And the good news is that if they can then resolve conflict with severely mentally ill people, they can easily resolve conflict with other people too.
And that's what's happened. Their use of force in all their agencies is way down.
Right.
Because they're now using their nonverbal skill to talk to everybody. You don't have to have a mental illness to be able to.
Right. I don't have to show
Right,
that I can
exactly.
more. It's like, okay, let's keep it cool. Let's
Right.
chat about this.
And most people respond right.
Yes,
And
people.
Right. And if they're not, then they know what they have to do. But it works really, really well. So it's been a huge success. Now, the other things that we've done, which have been equally successful, is we set up we have two post-arrest diversion programs, one in the misdemeanor division and one in the felony division. So now what happens if that psychiatrist had come back to me today and he was floridly psychotic like he was, we would not have ordered all those evaluations. I would have had a doctor at the jail scene see him within minutes of his arrest. The doctor would have issued a professional certificate. The court, within 24 to 48 hours max, would sign an order. Department of Corrections would transport him to a crisis stabilization unit, and because they're under a criminal hold, the 72 hours doesn't apply. So we reset it for 2 weeks. We really get them stabilized. While they're in there, the lawyers are looking at their history and their case. A plan is put together, and if they agree to treatment, the state generally drops the charges after a few months. And it's unbelievable. Our recidivism rate dropped from about 72% to about 20%. And we just got a huge grant from a foundation to take us to the next level. Because what we have found is there is a smaller population, really, really acutely ill, mostly schizophrenics, who are have been very resistant to the type of programming that we've had out there. And we did this study with the Florida Mental Health Institute last year, and it was mind-boggling. I asked them to look. They have these great computer systems, and they have the ability to look at Baker Acts, Medicaid records, criminal justice records, you name it, all in one. And so they can tell who the highest utilizers of criminal justice mental health services are in the state. And so I said, well, do it for Dade County, because I'm figuring they're going to come up with a couple thousand people, you know, we have such a high rate, blah, blah, blah. They narrowed it down to 97 people.
Wow.
These 97, primarily men, primarily with a schizophrenic diagnosis, over a 5-year period were arrested almost 2,200 times.
Wow. Spent
27,000 days in the Dade County Jail, 13,000 days either at an emergency room, crisis unit, or psychiatric facility, and cost taxpayers almost $13 million. We would have been better off sending them to Harvard. I mean, we got nothing for it, nothing. And so what this grant's going to enable us to do is to offer a higher level of service and cognitive behavioral treatments, which we think is a missing component for some of the individuals that get arrested. There seems to be what research is showing us a criminogenic factor, that even if they didn't have a mental illness, they might end up over here because they live in zip codes with high crime rates, high illiteracy rates, they have a substance use problem on top of their mental illness, and they think like a criminal. And so not only do we now have to deal with their mental illness, we also have to address the criminogenic issues. And so we're very excited to test this out and evaluate it and see if we're able to really get after that next 20% of this high utilizer.
And you can compare it beautifully.
Yes. And that's what we're doing. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to do treatment as is now with one group, and we'll have a real apples and apples. And exactly. So we're very, very excited about it. And then we also have a felony diversion program. And so for individuals who are getting arrested on low-level felonies, and you know, the thing that people need to understand when they're looking at this isn't about a free pass out of jail. The way we look at it, and this is very simple, but it makes a lot of sense. if you're in jail because of your mental illness, we want to get you out as quick as we can and get you treated. If you're in jail in spite of your mental illness, then you have to face your consequences. You know what you were doing, and you have to, pay the penalty.
Because both things can happen.
And both things can happen. And so this isn't about, just some do-gooder social program. It's about doing the right thing for the right reason with really good outcomes that are going to improve our public safety, save a lot of taxpayer money, and really help people who are just here because they're sick get into recovery and get their lives back. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily appreciate, but you can recover from mental illness. There's not a cure, but some of the data tells me that recovery rates are better for people with mental illness than diabetes. And so you really have to have a good system of care, continuum of care, and a lot of this population can actually do relatively well.
Well, one of the things that you tapped into is time. And in this healthcare arena, where we expect people to bounce back in a couple of days, we realize that those people who are severely mentally ill and who are in that revolving door, just like you mentioned, they're not going to get well in 2 days. They may not get well in 2 weeks.
Or in 2 months.
Or in 2
years. I mean, but they need a roadmap to recovery. That's right. And sometimes it takes a brilliant pharmacologist to figure out the right mix of medication. Sometimes, in one of the studies that we participated in nationally, which again mind-boggling, that we really were not prepared for, is that almost 100% of the women who are in jail or prison with serious mental illness have serious trauma issues, and about 75% of the men. Well, very few communities have any trauma-related services. Most of these women were sexually abused as children. The brain waves have been altered. They're hearing voices. They're having schizoaffective type disorder. They self-medicate themselves with cocaine to get rid of the voices. They then go to prostitution to pay for the drugs, and they spend their entire adult lives in the criminal justice system, and they were victims themselves as children, and it's horrifying. And so what we're doing now is we've added a trauma track, and we evaluate now for trauma. And we just have gotten so much more sophisticated. When all I wanted to do was get one doctor out of jail who had a mental illness, it's become this massive, massive program.